All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going on a journey into a whole new way of looking at consciousness. It's a framework where one of the most ancient symbols of all time is meeting the absolute cutting edge of neuroscience. We are talking about spiral state psychiatry.
So, let's start with a shape you already know, even if you don't realize it. It's written into the very fabric of the cosmos. You see it in the immense, beautiful arms of a galaxy, a universal pattern of growth and movement.
And then, that same exact pattern, it spirals all the way down into the absolute core of who we are. It's the double helix of our DNA, the very code that makes you, you.
So you've got this spiral shaping galaxies and shaping life itself. So what if it's also the shape of healing? The sources we're digging into today make a pretty compelling case that modern science is finally catching up to this ancient idea, giving us a brand new map for psychological transformation. So let's take our first turn. Okay, for our first turn of the spiral, we're going to look at something fascinating. How these ancient, symbolic maps of consciousness are suddenly being rediscovered and, well, validated by our most advanced scientific instruments.
And this isn't a new idea. Not even close. If you go back, way back, over 5,000 years ago, to a place like Newgrange in Ireland, you'll find these triple spirals carved into stone. For our ancestors, this was a map of the inner world, a symbol for the journey of life, death, and rebirth.
Now let's jump forward to today. We've traded stone carvings for fMRI scanners, and with them, we've discovered this incredibly complex network in our brain called the default mode network, or DMN. You know that little voice in your head that's always on, the one replaying conversations or worrying about tomorrow? Yeah, that's your DMN. It's basically the headquarters of your self.
So here's the kicker. You have the ancient spiral, a map of consciousness, and you have the modern brain scan, a map of the self network. What if they're not two different maps at all? What if they're just two different languages trying to describe the exact same territory?
Let's spiral a little deeper now. We're moving from the map to the territory itself, right into our own biology. And this is where things get really interesting because the hard data is starting to sound a whole lot like ancient wisdom.
We usually think of inflammation as a bad thing, right? Something to get rid of. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? Instead of seeing it as just a disease, think of it as a fiery messenger. It's your body's intelligent alarm system, basically screaming that something, somewhere, is out of balance.
And look, this isn't just some nice, poetic idea. This is backed by a mountain of data. To figure out the connection, one massive meta-analysis didn't just look at one or two studies. They crunched the numbers from 107 of them.
And what they found was, well, it was undeniable. The link between inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and conditions like depression isn't just a small correlation. It's a huge, clinically significant connection. This is real physical proof of the link between what's happening in our bodies and how we feel in our minds.
This brings us right back to that idea of two languages describing the same thing. On one side, you have mystics through the ages talking about ego dissolution, this profound feeling of oneness with everything. And on the other, you have neuroscientists describing DMN deactivation. The words sound totally different, but they're describing the very same human experience.
And we can actually measure this. It's not just a subjective feeling. One foundational study found that experienced meditators could cut down on their mind wandering, that chattering DMN, by 47%. That is a massive, measurable shift in the ability to quiet that ego network. Okay, so we've spiraled inward into the body and the brain. Now, we're going to spiral outward. We're going to ask a pretty wild question. Is consciousness really locked up inside our heads?
Now, there are a lot of theories about this, and they are not all created equal. Some, like morphic resonance, just don't have the scientific backing yet. Others are just starting to emerge. The idea here is to look for coherence. Where does the evidence really start to line up and tell a consistent story?
And the place where it lines up best is this idea of psychophysiological coherence. It's a state that scientists at the HeartMath Institute have been studying for years, and it's totally measurable. It's when your heart rhythm, your brainwaves, and your breathing all sync up into this beautiful, harmonious pattern. And with over 300 studies to back it up, we know that when this happens, everything from your focus to your emotional resilience gets a major boost.
All right, get ready for the next turn, because this is one our ancestors could never have seen coming. We're talking about the intersection of human consciousness and artificial intelligence, the emergence of what some are calling the technological shaman.
And before you write this off as science fiction, just look at the data. These aren't guesses. These are results from proper clinical trials.
AI chatbots are helping people achieve a nearly 50% reduction in depression symptoms and over a 40% drop in anxiety. That's huge.
So, does this mean AI is replacing therapists? Not at all. It's about understanding what each does best. You know, an AI is incredible at being available 24/7 and spotting subtle patterns in data. But for that deep human connection, that empathetic resonance you need to heal complex trauma, well, that's still our domain.
So, the takeaway is pretty clear. AI is not a replacement for human care. It's a powerful tool, a partner. It can make care more accessible, more data-driven, but it can't replace the unique magic that happens in a human-therapeutic relationship.
Okay, for our final turn, we're bringing the spiral all the way back home. Back to us, back to our bodies. We're going to look at healing not as a straight line to being fixed, but as a rhythm, a cyclical return to the natural harmony our bodies are always seeking.
And what's so amazing is how simple this can be. Take HRV biofeedback. Sounds complicated, right? But the core practice is just breathing. That's it. Breathing at a specific slow rhythm, around 6 breaths a minute. Do that consistently, and the evidence shows you can literally regulate your own nervous system and even reduce inflammation in your body. How powerful is that?
And it's not just breathing. This principle of rhythm is everywhere in healing. Think about the back and forth movement of EMDR for trauma, or even therapeutic drumming. One study showed it can actually flip your immune response from pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory. It all comes back to the same ancient wisdom. Healing is rhythm.
So we end right back where we started, with the spiral. It's not really an endpoint, is it? It's a map for an ongoing journey. It shows us that maybe ancient wisdom and modern science aren't actually at odds. Maybe they're just two essential perspectives on the same deep reality. Which leaves us with one final question to think about. If this is where we are now, what new territory, what new understanding of ourselves will the next turn of the spiral reveal?